Hello and welcome to lesson 92 of the Learning Guitar series. In this particular lesson, we're going to look at the 6th degree of the harmonic minor modes and a particular scale and mode called the Lydian sharp 2. Let's delve straight away into the PDF and let's see what this is about. So the Lydian sharp 2 mode, the 6th mode of the harmonic minor scale, is a major type scale that can be derived by starting on the 6th degree of any harmonic minor scale. In terms of intervals, the mode consists of 1, sharp 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, major 7. More to come about that sharp 2. This mode differs from the traditional Lydian mode, as in the 4th mode of the major scale, by having a raised second sharp 2 instead of a natural 2. The combination of a sharp 2 and a sharp 4 gives the scale its distinctive exotic character. So if we think in terms of the differences in between Lydian and Lydian sharp 2, this is just a G note. Lydian has this kind of sound. And of course, we are referring to a major type of chord. Lydian sharp 2 has got this kind of sound. And also applies to a major type of chord. And let's have a look at why. It's important to note that the sharp 2, also called the sharp 9, is enharmonically equivalent to a flat 3, a tone commonly associated with minor harmony. Therefore, applying this scale to a major chord introduces a strong and unexpected alteration. This is why the Lydian sharp 2 mode is frequently used in jazz and fusion contests, where harmonic tensions and colors are welcome, but is much less common in pop and rock music, where the total clarity and stability are more typical. So, let's compare now the most common Lydian bass modes, and we've done some in the past already because we've done of course Lydian from the major modes and applies to major chords. Then we looked at Lydian augmented, which was basically Lydian with a sharp 5 and also applied to major chords altering, the 5th. So the type of chord which is maybe a major 7, sharp 11, sharp 5. We looked at the Lydian dominant, quite an important one, because it applied to dominant chords like 7 sharp 11 for example, and the difference was again a Lydian mode but with a flat 7 instead of a major 7. Last but not least, we have now Lydian sharp 2, where we have a Lydian but with a sharp 2 and also applies to major chords. And let's have a look at why. So here is a Lydian sharp 2 scale, and the interval, as we said, is 1, sharp 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, major 7, and then root note. What's important to understand here is that sharp 2 and flat 3 are actually the same note. So in a way, as you can see here, we have both a major chord, 1, 3, 5, major 7, but as a matter of fact, included in this is also a minor major 7 chord. So we have 1, flat 3, 5, major 7. So this particular scale somehow can apply both to a major 7 type of chord and have an alteration here, which we don't call flat 3, we actually call it a sharp 2. But also we could, in theory, have a minor chord, a minor major 7, where the alteration becomes the 3rd, which makes it even more difficult sonically to negotiate. I'll give you an example. So let's have a listen to these two distinct kind of case studies. Let's first listen to the Lydian sharp 2 applied to a major 7 type of chord. In this case, we're going to use G. And here is the scale. Here is the flat 3 against the major chord, which has a 3rd, obviously. But as you can see, it's an interesting alteration. In this case, it's a sharp 9 or sharp 2. And somehow, it's got a certain musicality to it. Interesting. Now let's see what happens if we apply it instead to a minor major 7 chord. So in this case we can play G minor major 7. And now this is not an alteration anymore, but this is. And in fact, it's a more common use of this particular scale over major chords as opposed to minor major 7, for the reason like to have a major third as an alteration is probably harder to negotiate than instead of having a sharp 2 or a sharp 9 alteration over a major chord, as you heard. Let's keep looking into the scale, because there is also some interesting things happening in terms of the chords present in it. So in fact, if we look at it, beside here, for example, here is our shape for major 7. This is simply G major 7. But not only, we can also spot here we have, for example, an F sharp 7. So basically a semitone down from the actual chord we're thinking of. In this case, it would be G Lydian sharp 2 as a scale. But we can get to basically all the extensions. So the upper structure of that mode, in fact, we have the major 7, sharp 9, sharp 11, and 13. So the entire upper structure by playing F sharp dominant over it. And sonically, obviously, is a bit like saying, okay, we're moving from G major 7 as an arpeggio, and that gives us 1, 3, 5 major 7 or Lydian sharp 2. And F sharp 7, and that gives us the entire upper structure. So in a way, I can bounce back and forth in between this particular extended triad over, and the chord is still G major 7. Let's have a listen to it. And this is the kind of like harmony theory that makes sometimes a scale even more usable, because if I have to remember basically over a major chord, if I want to bring like a Lydian sharp 2 sound to it, all I have to remember, okay, if the chord is E major, and of course I can play the E major 7 arpeggio, and those are all chord tones in a way. But then I can move a semitone down from that chord, so in this case E flat, and run an E flat dominant chord, and now I'm introducing the entire upper structure of the Lydian sharp 2 mode. Let's look at, there is more chords in there. So again, if we look at this scale from the point of view of its sixth, the sixth in the case of G is E. Now we can see that there is an E diminished in there. And of course, if it's E diminished, given the property of a diminished chord, and we've seen this in the past, E means also it's G diminished, it's also B flat diminished, and it's also D flat diminished. But that means that we introduce all the properties where we can move this arpeggio and this chord in tones and half. Also, still from the point of view of E, there is also E half diminished, which you can see here. And I could keep going. As you can see, there is a lot of chords which are contained in this particular scale, which makes it, very interesting. Also, when you're trying to solo, there is among others, there is a B minor major 7. And that gives us the third, the fifth, the major 7, and the sharp 9. So again, we are standing the triads beyond the major 7, and we get to the sharp 9. So we get to what makes Lydian sharp 2 a Lydian sharp 2. But let's start from this E diminished, because that's an interesting one also. Because you have this sound basically, but because it's got the property of diminished, we can move it that way. So again, I have a major chord, and as we said, of course, G major 7 are chord tones. And we know F sharp 7 gives us something, the upper structure, but now I also have E diminished. And B minor major 7. So let's continue with the PDF, and in fact, let's examine the vertical structure of the Lydian Sharp 2 by harmonizing it to see which chords naturally arise from it and understand better how and where this mode can be applied in a musical setting. And this is the modal arpeggio, basically the scale spelled vertically as an arpeggio. Here, given extended triads, you have all the chords that we can extract from it, and which I listed here. And as you can see, G major 7, obviously B minor major 7, which we mentioned. There is a D major 7 sharp 5 in there. There is an F sharp 7. Again, we mentioned this one. We mentioned like also E minor. Beside E diminished and E half diminished, there is also an E minor. There is a mistake. I'll correct it. This is one flat 3. In fact, as you can see, E flat 3, 5, and this is a flat 7. And in fact, if we look at the diagram, if I spell this out, 6, 1, 3, 5, this is E minor 7. So not only we have E half diminished, we have E diminished, but you also have an E minor. So again, I can run an E minor arpeggio and get basically just a 13. The rest is, still like a major triad. If you continue the PDF, obviously you'll have the 5 shapes of the scale. Again, cage system, which means if the scale will resemble the ones you've done for harmonic minor. We're just displacing them as always. And in blue, you'll see the chord within. So here is the major 7 in 5 shapes. So this is followed by the major 7 arpeggios. And obviously, you've been through this before. And as always, you have the color, the chords highlighted in blue. This is followed by the modal arpeggio. So the entire vertical structure of the Lydian Sharp 2 mode. In fact, you have 1, 3, 5, major 7, sharp 9 or sharp 2, sharp 11, 13, and 1 over, again, the cage system. This is followed by the chords, and when it comes to the chords, beside the obvious major 7, I'll try to highlight all chords that somehow include either the sharp 9 or the sharp 11. Basically what makes this kind of a Lydian Sharp 2 interweaved with also like chords that we already knew from, say, Ionian or Lydian. The best way to practice these particular chords, obviously, is to think of them as a major chord. So, because there is a sharp 2 in there, some of this resolution, because we tend to think of the major chords as resolution, will not necessarily sound as resolved because the sharp 2 is bringing tension into play. Nevertheless, it's an interesting sound, and you can practice these chords and also all the scales and arpeggios, maybe with the aid of the backing track that I'm providing you with, which I'm going to demonstrate to you in a second. And you can definitely use it to play these kind of chords over the backing track. The backing track resolves around simply a major 7 arpeggio, a major 7 chord moving towards the F sharp 7 we mentioned to create this kind of Lydian sound. But nevertheless, you can apply any of these chords to it and learn the sound of the Lydian Sharp 2. Same thing from the point of view of lead. This is it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy playing, enjoy the backing track, enjoy practicing, and until next time. Thank you. Bye.